Application 302-25, Nicole Anderson and Katie Lucrezio, trustees of the Lucrezio Family Irrevocable Trust. Are they here? Permission to leave air conditioning unit having side yard of 1.3 feet and shed having side yards of 1.8 feet instead of required 2 feet each. Residential A district, south side of Carp Drive, 548.33 feet west of Carlton Avenue, ISF Terrace, New York. And you just state your name and address for the record.
Daniel Lucrezio.
Mr. Lucrezio, you here just on the air conditioning unit in the shed?
I can't hear you.
You're here for the air conditioning unit in the shed tonight?
Yes.
Any questions from the board at this time?
No questions.
Planning, any comments?
No comment.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this matter? Okay, I'll take a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor? Motion is granted. Application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one. Application 303-25, Tony Ann DeMayo, permission to leave cellar entrance having front yard of 15.7 feet instead of required 22 feet, and air conditioning unit having front yard of 18 feet instead of the required 27 feet. Residential A district, northeast corner of Sudam Lane and Pine Street, 1,046 feet south of Middle Road, Bayport, New York.
Your name and address, please?
Tony Ann DeMayo, 103 Sideham Lane, Bayport, 11705. Yep. Say it again? You
Is
good?
the microphone on?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, you know what? This can't.
You should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Does Ken know we're on?
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's microphone's on.
Okay, I'm sorry. Name and address, please.
Tony DeMayo, 103 Sideham Lane, Bayport, New York.
And you're here on the cellar entrance in the air conditioning unit?
Yes.
Thanks. Any questions from the board?
No.
You're not on the board.
Oh.
No question.
No, you don't.
Congratulations.
No, this board has no question.
Planning, do you have any comments?
It's an unopened road, so there's no issue here.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this matter? I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to grant the application.
Second, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Application 304-25, John and Gabrielle Scarpento, permission to install 6-foot fence on front property line not having required setback of 10 feet, residential A district, southwest corner of Bethesda Lane and Broadway Avenue, Sayville, New York.
John Scarpento, 34 Bethesda Lane, Sayville, New York.
And you just here on the fence, sir?
Correct.
Planning, any comments?
Yeah, it's 28 feet more than the exception. It's well within range you'd normally grant.
Anybody else like to be heard in this matter? Any questions from the board?
No question.
Motion, please. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application is
Thank
granted.
you, John.
Application 305-25, John and Lorraine Woodhanil, permission to leave portico having front yard of 18.5 feet instead of permitted encroachment setback of 20 feet, roofed over cellar entrance having side yard of 12 feet instead of required 14 feet, roofed over deck having side yard of 3 feet instead of required 4 feet, and pole patio having side yard of 1.5 feet instead of the required 6 feet. Residential B district, north side of Oakwood Avenue, 817 feet east of Higbee Lane, West Islip, New York.
John Woodhanil,
You can pick the microphone up, sir. And your address?
351 Oakwood Avenue, West Islip.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No question.
Planning, any comments?
No comment.
Comments? Does anyone else like to be heard in this matter? I'll take a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor? Application is granted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Application 306-25, Cella Family Irrevocable Living Trust, Michelle Armenia, trustee, permission to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1, Residential A District, east side of Stephen Road, 1,632 feet north of Tucker Drive, Bayport, New York.
Stephen and Victoria Cella, 87 Stephen Road in Bayport.
He's here on the two-family dwelling, two-family use?
Yes.
Okay. And Connie is?
Connie is my daughter, who's the trustee, her mother-in-law. It's two grandparents.
Any questions from the board?
No questions.
Planning, any comments?
No comment.
All right. Anybody else like to be heard in this application? Take a motion, please. For a period of 3 years? Yes. Okay, we got a second, all in favor? Application's granted for a period of 3 years.
3 years, okay. And then after 3 years, we submit another application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Application 307-25, Palm Avenue, Hialeah Trust. Permission to leave first and second story additions, leaving floor area ratio of 27% instead of permitted 25%. Residential A District, east side of Pequot Lane, 375 feet north of Menasee Lane, East Islip, New York.
Is there anyone here in this application? All right.
Mine stinks. You know what? This is a hard job.
I know it is. Butchering them names good.
How would you pronounce it?
Your name and address, ma'am?
Eileen Familia, 68 Pequot Lane, East Islip, New York.
And your relationship to the applicant?
The real estate agent for them.
All right. Planning, any questions on this? Comments on this?
No, no comment.
Okay. Okay.
No comment.
Any questions from the board at this time?
No questions.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter? All right, take a motion, please.
I'll make an application at the end of the application.
Second.
Second, all in favor? All right, application's granted.
That's very
Thank you.
docile.
Application 308-25, Jose Ruiz. Permission to leave egress windows having second front yard of 21.5 feet instead of the required 30 feet. Residential AA District, northwest corner of Fulton Street and West End Avenue, Brentwood, New York.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thomas Loair, the architect for the project, 60 Carlton Avenue, Suite 202, Islip Terrace, New York, 11752. So yes, the intent of this application is just to legalize and maintain 2 existing egress windows, requesting the front yard setback of 21.5 feet instead of the required 30 feet. The window wells are flush to the ground, surrounded by 3-foot fencing, and it should also be noted there's a large portion of grass area, approximately 9.5 feet, which is part of the West End Avenue right-of-way. So the window well setback is 31 feet from edge of pavement to the window wells. If the board should have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions at this time?
No questions.
Planning, any comments?
No, I have nothing to add.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter? Yeah, take a motion, please. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
Thank you.
Application 309-25, Jason Severs and Nicole Schulthess Severs. Permission to leave driveway having side yard of 0.6 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residential A District, east side of Sandra Avenue, 2,175 feet south of West 4th Street, West Islip, New York.
Again, Thomas Loair, the architect for the project, 60 Carlton Avenue, Suite 202, Islip Terrace, New York, 11752. And yes, we're requesting a side yard setback of 0.6 feet instead of the required 4 feet. We don't know when the driveway was constructed. My clients purchased the home 4 years ago, and it was already there. The driveway does slope towards the street, also has a gravel bed bordered by Belgian block between the neighbor, so it does not cause any runoff onto the neighbor's property. If the board should have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board at this time?
No questions.
Planning, any comments?
No comment.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter? Okay, take a motion, please.
Second.
All in favor? Application's granted.
Application 310-25, Joseph Scalesi and Delwing McMaster, Joseph and Mary Carol Scalesi, Life Estate. Permission to use dwelling for 2-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-419.1, to leave patio on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet, rear yard landscaping of 33.7% instead of the required 40%, and 4-foot fence and driveway site triangle exceeding permitted height of 3 feet. Residential B District, northwest corner of Lombardi Boulevard and Oswego Drive, Bayshore, New York.
Again, Thomas Loair, the architect for the project, 60 Carlton Avenue, Suite 202, Islip Terrace, New York, 11752. So yeah, this home is owned by Joseph and Mary Carol Scalesi. They meet the age requirement. Their son, Joseph, and his husband, Delwing, were looking to live in the apartment. As far as the side yard, there's just some small existing concrete pavers, about 130 square feet of pavers that have that 0-foot setback instead of the required 4 feet. As far as the rear yard landscaping, yes, it's 33.7% instead of the required 40%. 23.1% of that is gravel, which is permeable. So, you know, a huge chunk, 23% of this is just a gravel driveway that water can run through. The site triangle is so minimal, I can show you a sketch if you want to see it. But basically, it is a completely see-through chain link fence. Now, site triangle calculation's a little tricky, but the fence measures 15 foot 8 inches back. So a small portion, probably 4 to 6 inches of this fence penetrates that site triangle. Like, in other words, if the fence was 16 foot back, we wouldn't ask for any relief. And again, it's a completely see-through fence. It's not blocking anyone's line of sight. If the board should have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions at this time?
None for me.
Planning, any comments?
As he was saying, and is as noted on the survey, it's a chain link fence. You can see straight through it, and nothing else about this application looks problematic.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter? Take a motion, please.
Okay, sure.
Please, sure.
Motion to agree with the application for a period of 3 years and bring the balance of the application.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Application 272-25, Miriam Matoss and Stephanie Adams, permission to leave roof over cellar entrance having side yard of 6.1 feet instead of required 14 feet, and shed having side yard of 0.6 feet instead of required 2 feet. Residential A District, west side of 4th Street, 338 feet south of 9th Avenue, Brentwood, New York.
Miriam Matos, 64th Street, Brentwood, New York.
Please speak into the microphone.
Miriam Matos, 64th Street, Brentwood, New York, 11717.
Okay, you're just here on the roofed over cellar entrance and the shed side yard?
Yes.
Planning, any comments?
Approximately how high is the roof over?
I don't know.
Okay. Does it peek over the fence? Or,
Yeah, it's much taller than the fence.
okay.
It's right here.
Oh, we have pictures. Oh, that's nice.
Then while you're looking at the pictures, what type of precedent do we have, if any? I mean, this is a large relaxation.
We have none. Very often with these roof overs, they end up getting granted just because it's not a very substantial structure or they're low to the ground. This one's not low to the ground, but it's still arguably not very substantial in terms of a structure. It's just a roof over.
Do we, I mean, we have a compliant neighborhood, do we want to start granting 6 instead of 14? That severe?
So, cellar entrances are usually permitted encroachments. I'm not 100% sure, maybe it's because of the height of the roof over. This one doesn't get that. So normally a cellar entrance can go up to 8 feet and be completely compliant with code. This one was not given that permitted encroachment. Again, the specific reasoning I couldn't quite figure out. So cellar entrances very often are closer to side yards than any other part of the house would be. It's in their nature to do so. It's really just a matter of whether or not the roof over is bothering the neighbor.
I'm just saying that, so what we'll do is then set a condition where everybody in that neighborhood can go 6.1 feet. Is that what we want to land on?
If it's concerned specifically with roof overs, I guess that could be a concern, yeah. I don't think this kind of grant would necessarily translate to like a one-story addition. I wouldn't consider
No,
that.
I'm just saying, are we ready to have everybody have 6 foot from the?
That would be up to the board.
I'm kind of putting it out there to the board members. It's an otherwise compliant neighborhood.
To the best that I can tell.
Yeah, I understand it's not earth shaking, but we will. Won't be allowed.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter? No? All right, then I'll take a motion to reserve. Any second, please? We reserve decision on this. So we're gonna review your case and then we'll get back to you with a decision in the matter. Thank you.
Application 311-25, Christopher and Linda Locaver, permission to erect second-story addition leaving floor area ratio of 30.1% instead of permitted 25%, and to leave driveway having front yard occupancy of 59.5% instead of permitted 40%. Residential B District, north side of Garden Court, 78 feet west of Brooklyn Boulevard, Bay Shore, New York.
Good evening. Matthew Bush, architect on behalf of the homeowners, 2615 Union Boulevard, ISF, New York. We're proposing a second-story sunroom addition along with a covered deck, and the deck is extending at the second floor, which is where our floor area variance is being created. As far as the driveway, this was a new house built in 2006, right around the time that the driveway code had changed. I did discuss it with zoning in terms of if that would be grandfathered in. Their direction was to defer to the board in terms of what we could get approved there.
Oh, no.
Nick, what do we have as far as FAR? Do you have over 30%?
Yes.
Okay. 30.1.
Technical difficulties.
And also the front yard occupancy, where are we, I always go to Mr. McKay.
I'm a rear yard occupancy person.
Oh, who's our expert in front yard occupancy? He only does rear.
So to be clear, this is way above what you would normally grant for front yard occupancy. The matter, as he kind of alluded to there, we didn't add front yard occupancy to the code until 2006. This got permits in 2005. At the time, the driveway wasn't on those, but in 2007, you can see the driveway was there, so there's kind of a bit of a gray area there as to whether the driveway predates or not.
What would we do now if we can find a meeting point in the middle? They don't comply, but it's close, so what do we normally allow for front yard FAR?
For front yard occupancy? I mean, it varies on the type of road, usually 45 or 50%. Again, in this case, well, there's two things going on here. One, I actually think it's relatively likely that they do predate it. It's just, I couldn't find any proof of that. But the building permits issued in 2005, again, they didn't show this driveway. It's pretty reasonable to assume that they constructed the driveway the same time they constructed the house. And then in 2007, it's very clearly there. And the code change, or the addition, was in December of 2006.
Yeah,
So,
I believe the house was CO'd in June, and the code change was in December.
yeah, just the driveway was not on the survey for some reason.
Nick, what's your subject?
The one in the middle right here, which is actually the second point, a lot of this green area is in the right-of-way, and they don't actually get any kind of credit for it in terms of like front yard landscaping, or rather, it doesn't count against the pavement. So it's possible they're pretty close to 40% if they did get to include that. They just don't have that. Personally, I think it's pretty likely that they predate, just didn't have the proof of it.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter? If we decide in favor of it, could we let the decision reflect all of those factors?
We can.
Any other questions at this time? No?
Nope.
All right, take a motion.
I'll make a motion here, yeah.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Case is granted.
Thank you.
Application 233-25, Elsie Serrano and Jose Serrano. Permission to leave driveway having side yard of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet, and 4.5-foot fence having front yard of 2 feet instead of required 15 feet, located in driveway site distance triangle exceeding permitted height of 3 feet. Residence A District, excuse me, east side of Howells Road, 204 feet south of Deer Park Avenue, Bay Shore, New York.
Elsie and Jose Serrano at 1237 Howells Road in Bay Shore.
Nick, could you just remind us why this was adjourned back from July, May?
I'm sorry?
Why was this case adjourned?
Oh, because I was away at the time, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, planning, any comments on? Oh.
She's got a scarf on.
I'm sorry, where are we right now?
We're on
233.
25.
Site distance triangle.
Oh, so, yeah, I wasn't able to bring it up. I'm not actually sure this fence is 4.5 feet along the entirety of the length. They have some brick pillars, which I'll try and bring up here, that I believe those are 4.5 feet, and the rest of the fence is probably 4 feet, which would be conforming on a front yard except for the side triangle, which is always a pain. Yeah, I am not able to bring that up right now, unfortunately. I don't know what's going on.
Part of it that's over 3 feet tall, so. There's a blind spot.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Part of the pillar creates blind spot. Inside the triangle.
One of the pillars?
I don't,
Pillar closest to the driveway.
The pillar to the driveway?
yes, and it creates a blind spot, and that's dangerous.
Oh, I don't know, we haven't had an issue with it.
That's like, yeah, nobody can tell yet, yes, but that's what we hear, prevent
Oh, okay.
potential dangerous.
So you're saying as to where it's located or the height?
Where it's located, I have
In both.
3 feet
It
below,
it has to be lowered?
yes. It's the safety.
At least at that point.
Why don't we circle which one so we know which one on the survey?
The ones that touch the driveway, the columns that touch the driveway.
The ones that are next to the driveway
Right.
itself?
When you're backing out, it creates a blind spot, that's.
Oh. Okay.
So it's both of them?
Both of them violate the code in that they're over 3 feet high, and they're in a site triangle that's formed by the driveway and the property line, or the edge of pavement, more accurately. Only one of them is really a hazard because it would block the traffic moving north on Howard Road.
So which one, the one that's by itself or the one that goes with the other four?
The south side of the driveway.
Facing the house?
Well, the south side of the driveway. As you're facing the house on the right.
The right side one.
That's the south.
Okay,
As you're facing the house on the right, the south side.
the right side.
That's more of a hazard than the one on the north.
So that's the one where the other 3 or 4 are at.
First of the two, right.
How tall would you say they are?
I'm sorry?
How tall are the pillars?
I think 4.5, 4.5.
Yeah, so they gotta be brought down to 3 feet.
Okay.
Well, it's up to you how you feel about the one at the other side. It's,
The other ones don't
Well,
bother
I
me.
probably want to bring them both down so it looks symmetrical.
Clay, do you have anything else on?
I'm sorry, what? I've been having technical difficulties.
are you? You can't get street view?
I can certainly try now.
Even if you use Google?
I mean, if only one is a hazard, then I could see allowing the other one to remain.
Yeah, so could I, whether they're worried about being
Dice que
symmetric,
uno
that's their
nada
issue.
más. But to bring one down, you gotta bring them both down. Right?
Here we go.
All right, there's street view.
There you go.
Oh, it's
Thank you, Nick.
Correct, that's it. Yes.
The one on the right is facing south.
That one has to go down to 3. That means we gotta do them all. It's gonna look funny.
Oop.
I don't think that that's a traffic hazard. The traffic is moving on the other, on the opposite side of the street in the other direction.
How far into the site triangle is that offending?
So the site triangle is drawn by the one leg on Howard Road at the curve being 20 feet, and the building block along the driveway being 16 feet. So how far into the triangle? It's really Okay, so we have to bring it down to 3. Both of them, or just that one? Yeah, it's gonna look funny, but we're gonna have to do them both. Okay. If we move them back, how far back do they need to go? The center of the road, you mean? What curb? Oh, from the curb in, how long, how much? 16?
16, 1/6.
1/6. Or drop it to 3. Or drop it to 3, okay. Okay. So drop to 3. Or in from the curb, 16, 1/6, okay. $16 feet, okay. 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 Thank you.
Moving along, huh?
We go faster without you.
Maybe I should go. Application number 312-25, David Clark, permission to erect roofed-over porch, leaving front yard of 32.34 feet instead of required 40 feet, two-story addition, one-story addition, and roofed-over patio, having rear yard of 17 feet instead of required 25 feet, all having floor area ratio of 30.95% instead of permitted 25%. Residence A District, southwest corner of Benning Lane and Grundy Avenue, Holbrook.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Amy DeVito, Woodhull Expediting with offices at 800 Veterans Memorial Highway, Hauppauge. So the purpose of this renovation and the additions, as well as the front porch, are to accommodate the Clark's son, who suffered a very tragic accident about 5 years ago, or 4 years ago. It was actually covered by News 12. So basically, he had a really terrible fall, had a severe spinal cord injury, and is now paraplegic and wheelchair bound. They have been working very closely with an architect to meticulously design the house renovation to accommodate the son's new special needs, including accessible areas for recreation, therapies, treatments, to accommodate storage for his various equipment for his very long recovery process. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. I actually don't, and I even checked with Nick. I know that the board will routinely grant up to 30. I did speak to my client. We don't know what the 0.95% would entail as far as reducing something, but it could be done. So if the board is willing to grant the 30%, we would be happy with that.
On 30%? Oh, and yeah, she said, she spoke with me or emailed me, and there's not really precedent for any of this, but whether or not the personal familiar hardship necessarily would give more accommodation with a grant is up to the board. Obviously, 30% is not a problem. There actually is one other grant for a rear yard of around 17 for what that's worth. And porches in the front yard, this one's not being given a permitted encroachment because the porch is just larger than usual, presumably to accommodate, but normally 34 feet would be permitted for a roof over porch. It's just not in this case because it goes a bit too far out. I think it's allowed up to 7, and this one's about 10 to 11.
How far out of the main, I understand the personal use, but that never makes a good zoning decision, because something could be sold a month later, so that happens. Be that as it may, how far out is Main Street is
In the sense of a front yard setback, you could say that it is, specifically because it's a porch that's not getting permitted. Again, it's normally a 34-foot front yard would be permissible as per code for a front porch. It's only because it has a depth of more than 7 feet that it's not the case here, which again, I assume that's to accommodate the disabled child. So I think it could be argued that it's not very far beyond what a porch would normally be given, even in this neighborhood, that wouldn't have to even go to the board at all.
Mr. Wexler, I did speak with the owners about potentially reducing the front porch and, okay. Well, I wasn't going to go there. I was just going to explain why we couldn't. Thank you. They'll be very happy. Have a good night.
Application number 313-25, Charles and Diana Leo Appel. Permission to erect second-story addition, leaving side yards of 13.1 and 11.9 feet instead of required 14 feet each, and total side yards of 25 feet instead of required 28 feet, leaving floor area ratio of 31.7% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, west side of North Briarwood Avenue, 535 feet north of Burling Lane North, West Islip.
Good evening, Diana Laspisa with Serrano Expediting Services.
You want to bring the microphone up?
I didn't know if it would. P.O. Box 39, Bethpage, New York, 11714. Here on behalf of the property owners, Mr. and Mrs. Appel. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. We're here before you requesting permission to construct a second-story addition with a minimum side yard setback of 13.1 and 11.9 instead of the required 14 feet, a total side yard of 25 feet instead of the required 28 feet, and also requesting an increase in the allowable FAR from 25% to 31.7%. The proposed second story will be within the footprint of the existing home. We are simply looking to maintain the setbacks of the original dwelling that was constructed in 1953. My clients grew up locally and were very familiar with the West Islip community. Mr. Appel had always desired to purchase a home within this neighborhood. Yes. I do understand that. I mean, I do have photos of many other homes in the area. This community actually consists of all similar size parcels. They're really, it doesn't vary. There's no unusual parcels. We didn't do any foils. We drive around the neighborhood and do like visibility. You know, we look at aerials and then see aesthetically. Okay.
Hi. Just to address it really quickly, the side yards are very well supported. No issue with the side yards. The FAR is a mixed bag. There's a grant at 33. There's another one at 32.8 and one at 31. So this kind of falls in the middle of that range that are all above 33.
And I will also say, I don't know if I can complete my presentation as well, but I also do want to say, I mean, we're 137 square feet over, 100, let me get that number. So 83 square feet of that consists of taking into consideration the portico, the stairwell, and the bay window. So that alone is 83 square feet. That has to be over the 30% that I know that the board, because I do always try to push towards that. You know, we obviously want to get everything resolved in one hearing and, you know, not have to reappear. But, you know, so I did try to relay that. So 137 square feet is what we are over of the 30%. That's what brings us to 30. So, yeah, so if I could. Yes, if you don't mind, if I can just complete, I'll be quick, just what I had to say. So, let me see where I left off. So Mr. Appel had always desired to purchase a home within the community to eventually raise a family one day. Finally, in 2017, their dreams came true and they did take ownership of the subject parcel. At the time of purchasing, the home suited their lifestyle. They were newlyweds in a well-sought-out community with no children. However, they were young and their family had only just begun to start growing. Fast forward to now, they have 3 children, 2 boys, 4 and 6-year-old, a 1-year-old yes. Yes. Okay. Well, also, I guess where I was going to answer the question, what brings them here today is also there was a fire at the house. So they are displaced from their home right now currently because of that. Oh, no, no. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't want to say anything either. Thank you. Have a good night.
Application number 314-25, Dylan Meyer, permission to erect second-story addition leaving side yard of 10 feet instead of required 14 feet, and to leave driveway having side yard of 2.7 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, east side of Wilson Boulevard, 250 feet south of Walnut Street, Islip.
Good evening. I'm Michael Dunn, the architect for the Meyers. My address is 256 Orinoco Drive in Brightwaters, New York, 11718. Good evening, everybody. So the Meyers are planning to add on to their 1.5-story house. It's kind of a Cape-style house now. So there's 2 small bedrooms with sloped ceilings there, and they're trying to make a real second story. So we're asking for that side yard of 10 feet. That was existing, so we're just going up and out to make those rooms feel bigger upstairs.
Any questions at this time from the board?
No questions.
No planning, any comments?
No, no comment.
That's it. All right, anyone else like to be heard in this matter? Like a motion, please, then?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we grant the application.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, application's granted.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Application number 315-25, Christopher and Susan Talt, permission to erect 1-story addition leaving side yard of 10 feet and second-story addition leaving side yard of 12 feet instead of required 14 feet each, total side yards of 24.8 feet instead of required 28 feet, and to leave pool equipment having side yard of 1 foot instead of required 6 feet. Residence A District, east side of Maroki Lane, 450 feet south of Manistee Lane, East Islip.
Good evening. My name is Nick Pfluger from Bowler Pfluger Architects at 85 East Main Street, Bay Shore, New York, 11706. I'm the architect on the project. I'm here on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Talt. We're here tonight proposing a 2-story addition on the south side of the house. The addition on the first floor would consist of a garage and family room. On the second floor, we're expanding the existing bedrooms. On the first floor, we have a setback, as it was just mentioned, of 10 feet, and on the second floor, the setback is 12 feet. We did step back that second floor addition up on the second floor with some emails back and forth with Nick. We did see that there was a precedent for the second story addition. We have 11.4 feet and 11 feet that was granted, one in 2021, one in 2000, looks like. For the 10 feet, the only thing that was found was actually something back, it looks like in 1981, for 9.5 feet for a side yard setback to a one-story addition. But with that, we feel that this proposal is, within the aesthetics of the surrounding area.
They're both the same side. They just have the second story brought in a little closer than the first story they're proposing. But to answer your question, there's one grant at 9.5. That's the only one that's equal to or less than what they're asking for. Originally, they were just doing a second story addition at the same line. They brought that one back for the second story specifically. I think they kept the first story the same because they're trying to fit a car in the garage.
Correct.
Relatively, yes. The 12 feet for a second story there's a couple other grants for that. As compared to the rest of the neighborhood, it's not well supported, if that's what you're asking.
Yes, we definitely, well, so the issue here is on the first floor, it's part of the addition is a garage. So it's already a very narrow garage, even with the 10-foot setback. I have the plan here, I can tell you. Right, I do understand that. Yeah, I mean, frankly, the only thing we're trying to hang our hat on is that 9.5 foot. Yep, I understand that. I would say, whatever, the board is inclined to approve for that first floor side yard setback, is where we would want to be.
Twelve is supported. I'd also say 12 I don't think is really substantial enough to be a concern regardless, but.
So 12 feet, if the board is inclined to approve 12 feet, we'll take 12 feet. Thank you. Have a good night.
Application number 316-25, Benjamin Sordo, permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602. Residence A District, east side of Otis Road, 979.43 feet north of Woodcliff Road, East Islip Terrace.
Good evening, Chairman of the Board. My name is Benjamin Sorto. Received on 45 Otis Road, Islip Terrace, New York, 11752.
All right, planning, any comments on this?
This is the accessory apartment?
Yes.
No comment.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
No questions.
All right.
Yes, it complies. The driveway's met engineering specifications. It could fit 4 cars.
Okay, I'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion to grant the application for a period of 3 years.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Application's granted for 3 years.
For how many years?
Granted for 3 years.
Thank you. Happy night.
Call the next one, and then I'll get to write it.
Yes, we are.
Application number 317-25, Salvatore Macaluso, permission to leave 2-story elevated dwelling with roofed-over porch having front yard of 29.1 feet instead of required 40 feet, shed having side yard of 0.2 feet instead of required 4 feet, and 4-foot fence in driveway side triangle exceeding maximum height of 3 feet. Residence A District, east side of West Bay Drive, 541.66 feet north of Bay 9th Street, West Islip.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. Kelly Bennett, 1257 Udall Road, Bay Shore, New York, 11706. Good evening. I'm here tonight on behalf of Mr. Maluso, who is here with us. We are seeking relief for a front yard variance. Our existing front yard setback.
Sorry, can you just move, Mike? Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
it's, right now, the existing front yard setback is 29.1. We are required to have 40 feet. Important to bring up to the board that back in 2015, the house was damaged from Sandy, demolished, and Sal's mom, Margaret, was before the board for a new dwelling. It was granted at 30 feet. So in looking through the documents, site plans, and surveys submitted between 15 and 2017, a lot of the plot plans just kind of show the building envelope in the 30 feet. Some site plans show it at 27 and change. So it was through a final survey that this came to light, bringing us before the board. Our second item, in terms of permission to leave the existing shed, we are going to be removing that. So the existing shed is to be demolished. And in terms of the third request for the fence and driveway site triangle, Sal has shared with me that that is the neighbor to the south who had installed that fence. So it's actually not his 4-foot fence. I don't know what.
Is it on his property?
It is.
Then it's his fence.
Okay.
Your neighbor built you a fence.
Which is in violation.
Which is in violation. So don't go running back to thank him.
So we're taking the shed off the?
Are you removing the shed?
We are demolishing the shed.
All right, so we're gonna remove that from the call?
Yes, please.
Make a motion to remove it from the call.
All in favor? All right, the shed has been removed from the call. Planning, any comments?
Yeah, so she kind of touched on it there. I actually didn't know that the fence was the neighbor's. What I did know is that the driveway that's being obstructed is also the neighbor's in this case. It's kind of a ridiculous situation in my opinion. So this is what it looked like in '04. The neighbor apparently expanded this driveway over more into the site triangle. So really it sounds like the neighbor's the one that had a violation, even if this is technically this gentleman's fence. Personally, I find it somewhat difficult to blame him for something that was completely out of his control in this case. The driveway was, well, the fence was probably compliant until the driveway got expanded by the neighbor. I don't know what we do in cases like this.
I'm sorry, Nick, I'm not following. Whose property is the offending part of the driveway on?
So the driveway that is being obstructed is the neighbor's driveway. It is not this man's driveway.
And what
The
about
fence that is along their shared property line here that apparently was installed by the neighbor but is on his property is too close to the neighbor's driveway.
But, okay, so the fence is on his property.
That's what the survey says,
So let's just, the fence was constructed by the neighbor.
according to them.
Okay. If we deny the fence because it's on his property, then the neighbor, well, that's, sorry the neighbor did it, but we have no leverage or power against the neighbor, not on his property.
The point I was making, and whether or not you agree, is that it's only an obstruction because the neighbor expanded their driveway, which was out of the control of this applicant as well.
Can I ask, forget about whose fault. Is it a site obstruction that is dangerous, regardless of fault?
Yes.
Okay, then we have to address it, because, and unfortunately, if the neighbor built it on this gentleman's property, then the gentleman's gonna have to speak to the neighbor. Otherwise, he'll be there, and we have no power.
Yes.
The neighbor will say, "It's not on my property."
Mr. Chairman, you know,
Hang on a second.
Sure.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to share, I almost forgot to share with you guys, that neighbor recently sold. I was kind of saying to Sal, hopefully maybe in the sale, I don't know if any of this was brought to light, maybe not, if they had other items to legalize, but it did just sell, so he's not even, he doesn't know who the new owner would be yet.
No different if one night somebody dropped a bunch of debris on the property.
Yep, yep, yep. And we completely understand that it's our bag, because it's on our lot. Yeah, the average front yard setback, I believe, noted by the surveyor was 28.43. And that won't impact for closing this up, the fence. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Application number 318-25, Great River Enterprises LLC. Permission to erect two-story dwelling on lot having area of 11,514 square feet instead of required 20,000 square feet, lot width of 66.1 feet instead of required 100 feet, to erect roofed-over porch leaving side yards of 14 feet instead of required 18 feet, and to install driveway leaving front yard occupancy of 41% instead of permitted 40%. Residence AA District, north side of River Road, 145.4 feet east of New Street, Great River.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. James German, German and Clemens Architecture, 3275 Veterans Memorial Highway, Suite B11, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779. The application that's before you was actually before this board and approved by the board on June 17th, 2016, under application 429-16. The previous owner of the property didn't do anything after the approval. My clients have bought the property, and due to the time since that approval, they wanted us to come back and get reapproved.
Okay, any questions from the board at this time?
There's not much to add to that. He's right. It's basically a reapproval.
Anyone else would like to?
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Application number 319-25, Netzero Building LLC. Permission to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to ISF Town Code, Section 68-419.1. To erect detached garage, 22 by 30, leaving side and rear yards of 4 feet instead of required 10 feet each, having height of 14.83 feet instead of permitted 14 feet, resulting in floor area ratio of 30.92% instead of permitted 25%, and to install driveway with turnaround, leaving side and rear yards of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet each. Residence B District, west side of Greeley Avenue, 371.11 feet north of Brook Street, Sayville.
Hi, I'm Joanne Beshoff. I've never done this before, so bear with me for a second. I'm also Netzero Building LLC. That's how I purchased the property. So which address do you want?
Whatever address you use is your main residence.
My main residence is 342 Adams Way, Sayville.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm actually building the house with my son and his wife and my husband. That's why we're looking for the two-family. And we purchased the property because it's perfect so that we could build a long house so that they can have the back with my grandson, and we could be in the front, and I could sit on the front porch. As far as the side yards, it's a very narrow piece. So I don't know if you've ever been on Greeley, but we want the driveway to go all the way into the backyard. No, that's okay. It's that piece, and that's the church over there, which actually helps, thank you. So we want the driveway to go all the way to the back so we could put a garage back there. And then the garage would give us a little privacy from the church parking lot that's over there. I don't know if you can see it. Also, Greeley is kind of a main road, so having a short driveway, we couldn't do a turnaround driveway because of the cesspools, and we didn't want the short driveway and to be backing onto Greeley, because that's just too dangerous, especially when there's football games and things happening at the school. So we wanted to be able to pull around to the back, have the garage there, and then we can turn around there and pull out of the driveway. Have I gone off course because you're all... Oh, it's the school across the street, that's the main office, and there's the library, and then the football field is up the road a little bit right there before the railroad tracks. So it gets very busy. Mm-hmm. Well, really it would be for one car, lawn equipment, bicycles, and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. But there's really nothing there. Like I said, the church is there. The church's parking lot. So if we have the garage there that we could put the car in and all of our lawn equipment, otherwise, then I'll be stuck getting sheds, which are really unsightly, to put in bikes, lawnmower, and all of that kind of stuff, where it could just be neater, where we could have the car, and then it could really be more conforming to the neighborhood, because if you've ever driven around Sayville, it's beautiful. You have all these beautiful old homes, and then the garages match. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. I understand. Yes.
I have all the answers, apparently. It's a relatively straightforward one, actually. There's not really anything to support it. I don't really understand why the garage needs to be located there. It's currently a vacant property. You have a very large rear yard. It didn't seem like it would be that hard to just move it up and over a bit and still have it back there, as opposed to having this in the front.
Up, which, you mean up closer to the house?
Yeah, you need to go
Do you
6
have-
feet up towards the house and...
The problem is, we need to put a lot of dry wells in because of the site, yeah. How many dry wells do we need?
There's 2 in the back.
And then we had hoped to put a pool in, and it doesn't leave really much room.
I mean, I'm looking at the plan here. The 2 dry wells are probably 50-plus feet away from this garage.
It's a
That might be
very,
because of the garage.
it's a very deep house.
Unfortunately, the garage is too large, and it's not as though you need, this is a 60%, 60 relaxation. That's significant. It's not as though you need a bunch of early. Somebody had 29.1 in the
Okay.
third. That's the minimum. That's
Okay,
Could you rotate the garage?
could we rotate it? You mean so that you could pull straight in? Originally, that's what we were going to do. So then it would be on the left side of the property as you're facing it. But the whole point was that the church is right there, and you have that big parking lot right there. So we really were hoping to give ourselves the privacy. We have just a residential home here, but then you have the commercial space there. We did. And why is he not here? I didn't, that's a good question. He, so it could be, we could make it that size, but we would have to move it away from the property line, is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. And I mean, we could give, it's new construction, I mean, so you could make it.
We could put it anywhere we want, it's just,
As long as it's open property.
I would also say, I don't know why it's 14.83 feet in height.
What could we make it smaller to?
no, not, he said not make it smaller, we have to move it away from the property line. And I don't want to make it smaller, then we have no place for the bikes and everything.
But then you're moving it 10 foot away, and it's gonna, I mean, it's just going into. Follow the code. Right. So, we'll give minor relaxation, not 60%.
Would we be able to do 5 feet instead of 10? Would-
It's,
I mean, we ride our bikes around town all the time, and I don't know the radius you're actually looking in, but a lot of the garages are right on the property lines, and, I mean, Sayville is just like that, it's,
so the other issue you might be running into is that if this was less than 500 square feet, 4 foot would be a compliant rear and side yard. Yeah, I
Okay.
think this one's, 600. You say you don't want to make it smaller, and you don't necessarily have to make it smaller, but if you're going to keep it at this size, it should be set further back. If you did make it smaller, if it's under 500 feet, you don't have to move it at all, and it would be completely compliant.
What size would you?
499.
499.
499 or less.
Okay, 499 would be like 20 by,
That's just one option. Alternatively, you could move it. You could do either one.
we wanted as big a backyard as we could actually get, maybe to put the pool in and, you know, have room. Like I said, it's a very narrow property, and the house itself is very long. No, I understand, I do. I know, I got it.
It's a surveyor, looks like.
You have to take about 8 foot off of it width-wise. Currently, you have it 30 feet wide by 22 feet deep, resulting in 660. In order to get.
Oh, we have it 30 by,
If you did go that route, it actually would also solve your potential FAR issue, which I do think is probably an issue. We haven't discussed it, but there's nothing to support 30.92 either. So that would solve multiple problems if you went that route.
so we could go, you said take 8 feet off?
Approximately, yeah.
So then you're talking about a 22 by 22.
Without any variances or anything.
For the garage, yeah. The garage would be in a conforming location where you're trying to put it then in that case.
So why don't you follow Mr.
Well, if we make it smaller, then,
and take this backyard?
we're running out of time. We have to, unfortunately, because there was a variance when we purchased the property, and we wanted to be able to start building, and I don't mean to, well, I don't mean to give you a hard time.
That's why we're here.
The two-family are we good with that? Two-family, thank you. So what are we were trying to keep the garage pitch to match the house pitch. Why are you looking at me like?
Why?
Because from an aesthetic standpoint, I don't know if you've ever driven around and looked at houses, but when you have the garage and the house, it just,
I mean, in
looks
this
like
case,
they
you're
were-
only about, well,
What?
you're 0.83 feet above what's needed, but height for accessory structures is very, very rarely granted by this board.
okay, so we're point what?
0.83, 14-foot height is compliant.
And what are
It's
we
less
at?
than a foot.
So we should do 14 feet.
Yeah.
We'll take 14. 14 feet
We don't
on
even
the
need to give you
garage.
that. That's just allowed.
We'll do 22 by 22 on the garage is okay? So I can build it, but it has to be under 500. Okay.
We have a plan.
Okay.
Gary Bischoff. Yes. Same.
Thank you.
Application number 320-25, Hauppauge Library, Crest Hauppauge LLC. Permission to leave 2 ground signs where 1 is permitted and facial sign having area of 88.5 square feet instead of permitted 32 square feet. To install 2 public interest signs having area of 24 square feet each instead of permitted 3 square feet and height of 7 feet instead of permitted 5 feet. In the alternative, applicant seeks a determination that the proposed signage is exempt from local zoning regulations pursuant to the balancing test set forth in matter of County of Monroe versus City of Rochester, Industrial 1 District, southeast corner of Veterans Memorial Highway and Spartan Lane, Hauppauge.
Hi. My name is Daniel Simon. I represent SignWave. We are a local sign company and a permit expediting firm taking this project on behalf of the library. Just a very brief history. The library asked for some directional signage, which we were doing some public interest signage to alert drivers where the 2 entrances to the parking lot should be. And in so doing, Inspector McCaffrey suggested that a lot of the signage on the property was not permitted. So we then undertook an exercise to make sure that all the signage on the property could be legalized, at which time she suggested that we approach this variance hearing to get this balancing test in order to override any local sign ordinances because of the public interest involved. Okay.
So you're going to take us to the 9th step of County of Monroe versus City of Rochester?
Oh, I would be delighted to if you were.
That's okay.
Brevity will be
You may not need to.
Okay. Essentially, there's a overriding public interest that they found was in place in Monroe when Rochester tried to assert as I understand it, the right of zoning over them.
Involving,
If I recall correctly, in
I'm
that case,
impressed.
they set forth 10 factors.
Studied up.
That to consider.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're a chapter ahead of me on that one, sir, I'm afraid.
Was there ever any sort of a public forum for the public to have an ability to come, sometimes, we see this a lot with fire districts, they'll have
a bond issue.
A forum and people come and complain. Did that happen here?
For the library specifically, no.
Yeah, right. Let's just grant it as a variance and skip the Monroe test.
Oh, no, no.
No.
It's not sitting.
If I can interject,
Yes,
the town
please.
attorney's office
Town
did review
attorney's
this matter. It went through the 9 factors, and it found that the balance of those 9 factors, which again is articulated in Monroe v. City of Rochester, favors granting zoning immunity for the proposed signage in this instance. I can walk through the factors if the board feels inclined. There we go. Say no more.
We trust in Jordan.
Someone
Jordan,
has
can
to.
you just incorporate this nice printout into the decision and? Oh, yes.
Of course.
I am. I will bring a motion that the applicant has satisfied the Rochester test, and as a result, the board need not determine the variance application.
Second, all in favor?
Thank you very much.
Mary, if you need a copy. I'm killing it tonight.
I would rather.
No. The public notice said signage. It was only to the signage. Application number 321-25, Paul Della Universita. Permission to leave accessory structure 12.3 by 37.1, having height of 16.7 feet instead of permitted 14 feet, side yard of 3.4 feet instead of required 4 feet, and not having 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. To leave gazebo 12.9 by 20.7, having height of 16.2 feet instead of permitted 14 feet, located in front yard, not having 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. To leave wall number 1 having height of 9.1 feet instead of permitted 6 feet. To leave wall number 2 having height of 9.79 feet instead of permitted 4 feet, and having front yard of 1.2 feet instead of required 15 feet. Pool patio on side and rear property lines not having required setback of 6 feet. Patio and barbecue, outdoor kitchen on rear property line not having required setback of 4 feet, and rear yard landscaping of 25.7% instead of required 40%. Residence A District, east side of Eaton Lane, 1,446 feet south of Magoon Road, West Islip.
Denise Trefaro, DTT Design, 1165 Broadway Avenue, Holbrook.
Paul Della Universita, 249 Eaton Lane, West Islip.
Good evening. Yes, he bought this house 2 years ago. It'll be in September, with it all here already, not knowing that it was not permitted. Went to put a gas fireplace in the outdoor gazebo, and when the guy went to go for the gas tank, correct, get the permit, this all came up. So we're here because he wanted to put a fireplace in the outdoor gazebo. I numbered the items on the...
Did his closing attorney just not look at the CO and the survey and compare it?
I know. I'm reading it as well, and I wasn't told nothing that was going on. I mean, when I purchased the house, well, when I first went to go see the house, it was a house that I didn't think I could afford, and then when I had gotten some funds together to purchase the house, everything went through very quickly. The owner lowered the price for me, and
Probably because nobody else could buy it.
No mortgage, right?
yeah. So I mean, hey, he just had rebuilt the house, and I was told that the wife didn't want to live on the water anymore, and the opportunity presented itself, and I took it. And then I had a great idea of maybe being able to watch Yankee games outside near the pool, and this whole thing started with everything being out of code, and and now we're here. So any consideration? I guess I'm asking for any consideration. There are some things where I think that even though that they might not be to code, really helped me. The first month I moved in the house, the block got flooded like 4 times. The wall that's on the property in the front really protected it from happening. My 3 neighbors have the same size wall on the same side of the street. Just recently, there's construction going on. A $1.5 million grant happened where there are new pumps going in, so the street won't flood anymore. I was told the block never flooded, and obviously I was on CBS News. I was interviewed. There were days I needed some of the town workers for me to jump in their truck to drive me and my daughter down the road so she can get to school and I can get to work. So There were a lot of crazy things that did happen with the house where I'm thankful that some of this stuff was there with regards to the front of the house. But other than that, I had none of this stuff. I mean, I had the house inspected, I had a lawyer, and it just went without.
You have a child that goes to the bridges?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay, planning, what do you got for us?
So obviously, there's a lot going on here. The last time this was in front of the board in 2019, none of this stuff existed, so I guess it was built within the past 5 or so years. And obviously, no, all without permits, we already know that part. So I'll start with the parts that are simpler. The outdoor kitchen, I don't see there's any reason to care. It's 0 feet, but again, this is backing up to a canal. That's the 2 factors that they have going for them here. I would say they're at basically the terminus of the road. So they have the terminus of the road in their front, the canal behind them, and the Great South Bay to the south. So at least in terms of neighbor impact, a lot of those are mitigating factors. Still, there's a lot going on here, so bear with me. The patio, again, no issue. The 2 accessory structures being higher than permitted is, I mean, we just denied, or not denied, we just told somebody they couldn't have one higher than 14 feet. It's very rare to give that. I don't really see a justification for it. It's a really tough situation, but I don't see any kind of justification for it. The rear yard landscaping is not necessarily supported by any kind of precedent. I will say they have a very small, narrow rear yard, just with the way the house is situated and the property lines here. So I can understand why that would be tough, and considering this is an area that floods a lot, I know there's several people that live on the waters that have properties that flood a lot that don't really want a lot of landscaping because salt water flows in, your grass dies, what's the point? So I think given that circumstance, I'm less offended by the rear yard landscaping than I would normally be for most. But yeah, these heights are really the big deal here. A gazebo in the front having a height of almost 17, 18. The other one that's next to the neighbor, also above height, not being set back properly. That's really tough to get past.
So the walls are okay, but the structures are no good.
The wall on the south side could be potentially justified based purely on the fact that this is the terminus of the road and the only person that's going to be looking at it are people on boats in the Great South Bay. There's no real neighbor impact at the very least. It's substantial, that's for sure, but I think it could be justified. The accessory structures I really got not much for. Besides the outdoor kitchen, which I think is completely unproblematic.
Anything in response to that?
His neighbor's apartment.
I'm responding to the structure that's next to the neighbor's house. Is that what you're at? Is that what he was referring to?
He's referring to the whole application.
Which part are you talking about?
He's talking about the structure that's next to the neighbor's house?
So there's that, which is too high and not set back properly. The setback properly, I mean, that's a bit tough again because you have a very narrow lot, but the height, yes, is a problem. And then the gazebo in the front yard that's also too tall is also something that wouldn't normally be permitted or approved.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I guess just to go back when it was here when I built the house. I obviously didn't break the rule. Obviously, I want to try and get it fixed. I just would look for the easiest way to try and resolve. I mean, I used that one unit for storage of my sneakers that I used to collect back in the day, and then the gazebo in the backyard. I have a TV and a couch out. I wouldn't. I guess you were saying I have to just lower the roof on it.
That would be the main issue.
The overall height's got to be brought down to 14 feet.
Overall height. Okay, and there's obviously just the water there and the pump behind the house. Is there any way to maybe reconsider the current height that it is?
We've had people tell us that they were told they had a building permit for 16 feet, and then they built it at 16 feet, and the board still unfortunately denied the application for a very similar set of circumstances. The applicant in that case actually filed an Article 78, and the board was upheld in their denial of the 16-foot-high pool house.
Was that where there was no neighbors either like this? Where it's
It was in
at
the middle of
end
a very
block?
large site, so it had some distinguishing characteristics, but the board just felt that it was new construction, it was 16 instead of 14, and there was really no basis for it.
Okay, and he said he's very friendly with the neighbor next door too, so they're
In
not
that hearing, I
complaining
think,
about the height of it, but
in that hearing, 10 neighbors came to support the application.
Height is a big deal.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this matter? All right, so, there's nothing else, I think I got a motion to reserve,
Yes.
right?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Make a motion to reserve?
Second.
All right, we're gonna reserve decision at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Application number 322-25, SFG ISF Bayshore Garfield LLC and B4H Incorporated. Permission to leave retaining walls 6.8-foot maximum height on property line not having required setback of 6 feet, and to erect 6-foot chain link fence leaving front yard of 6.5 feet instead of required 15 feet. Industrial 1 and Industrial 2 districts, west side of Garfield Avenue, 100 feet south of South First Street, through lot to Cleveland Avenue, Bayshore.
May we begin? Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Anthony Guardino with the law firm of Farrell Fritz in Hauppauge, and I represent the applicant SFG ISF Bayshore Garfield LLC. And they are seeking area variances to allow existing retaining walls and to erect a fence, a 6-foot chain link fence, on a vacant industrial parcel located at 26-28 Garfield Avenue in Bayshore. I have with me tonight Michael Coogan, who is a vice president with Stonemont Financial Group, representing the applicant, and also James German, an architect with German and Clemens. So just very briefly, the property is about almost 6 acres in size, located on the west side of Garfield Avenue in Bayshore. It has about 600 feet of frontage along Garfield Avenue and about 250 feet of frontage on South First Street. It is currently zoned I-2 and is improved with 2 buildings. Both are 1-story industrial buildings. One is about 10,000 square feet in size and the other is about 8,600 square feet in size. The site is largely surrounded, if you look at the aerial that's on the screen now, by heavy industrial uses to the north, south, east, and west. There is one small residence located on the east side of Garfield Avenue, but I'm not sure if it's actually being used as a residential, for a residential purpose, but there is a small house there. While the buildings in most of the site are vacant, the southeast portion of the site, about 66,000 square feet, is currently being used to store school buses. So the applicant purchased the property a couple of years ago with the intention of leasing the buildings and the balance of the property to a single tenant that would store, they're in the business of water and storage infrastructure components, so it would be piping, pumps, retention systems, meters, couplings, et cetera. After acquiring the site, the applicant and its representatives, including myself, met with the planning department and the engineering department to discuss the plans for the property. And I will tell you that the town's initial response was critical of the applicant's plans because the site was located at a dead end, the southern terminus of the paved portion of Garfield Avenue, which dead ends in front of the site, which you can see on the aerial. And the concern was basically that large trucks and, more importantly, fire trucks and other emergency vehicles wouldn't be able to turn around when they got to the southern terminus of the road. So the engineering department suggested that the applicant reach out to the neighbors and see if everyone would collectively donate some property so they could build a cul-de-sac. Well, of course, the other neighbors could care less, like, thanks, but no thanks. You know, we're not interested in that. So my client basically said, because they wanted to go forward, they said, you know what, we'll dedicate the land for the cul-de-sac on our side. So you can see that the cul-de-sac goes to the, I guess, towards the west.
And that way a fire truck and trucks could turn around. But in exchange, the town agreed to support the abandonment of the unimproved portion of Garfield, and then to give that property, portions of the property, to the adjacent properties. There are 4 of them. Engineering met with the 4 property owners that are adjacent and wanted to make sure that they were okay with the cul-de-sac and the reconfiguration of the road. Everyone was supportive of that because they would get more property. My client also agreed to dedicate a 5-foot strip along South First Street, so the town was happy with that. So now my client makes his application for site plan approval and receives a comment from engineering saying, and that's the meat of this application, that there are retaining walls on the property that are existing, but they separate the properties, and they also act as retaining walls because there's changes in grade on some of the properties. They would require variance relief. These walls are existing. So they separate tax lot to the west. They separate tax lot 20.7 and 20.8. And one owner is 31 Cleveland Holding, and one is Ron Glow. And then to the south is another retaining wall, and that's B4H. That's tax lot 113.3. Yes, I do. I was trying to look. Can I hand these up? Yes, okay. I was trying to be quick. I'm sorry. There you go. So, Mr. Chairman, were you asking for the site, photos of the site or the surrounding properties? Yeah. Okay, so yes, so the subject property is at 4, exhibit tab 4. Number 4 when you get it, yes. So there are a handful of photographs in there of the different portions of the property. I think the last one is a pretty good picture. That one I took on June 5th. Well, just the last one, the one that says June 5th. The other ones are Google Earth, but the last one shows. Sure. 4. Yes, I'm sorry. Well, you know what? It's not going to be, you're not going to even see it in these because it's, if you go to the last tab, 7, there you go. So if you go to 7, that's a photo of the retaining wall between the subject property and tax lot 20.8, which is, it's like right at the L of the property there, above, a little bit north, that right there. So that box that's to the left of that arrow, that's Ron Glow Realty. That's tax lot 20.8. That's the wall between those two sites. This one, this one is, go ahead, you want to speak?
The western walls really aren't.
Okay, good.
Michael Coogan with the Stonemont Financial Group. So that's the western wall. So there's not really a grade change. Some of them have piled materials and like run low voltage through it. So they're interested in keeping it. It's the southern wall that is functioning as a retaining wall.
Yes. Well, just wanted you to see the site. Yes. So the last photo, Mr. Wexler, is the southern retaining wall, and you can see the change in grade. It's there. It's a big change in grade there. It's pretty significant. Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly, exactly.
North Fairway, they're a co-applicant.
Yeah.
So that should be
Yeah,
it
they
right
joined
there.
in the application.
Yeah, they're the joint applicant.
There's a photo of North Fairway's property.
Because the wall crosses the property line.
There was a boundary line agreement proposed, and I said, nope, not good enough, they have to be co-applicants.
Well, and they did enter into a boundary line agreement ultimately, even though it wasn't needed. We do have a boundary line agreement.
So that made them happy.
Yeah.
But I wanted co-applicants. And then the other one, Ronlo, with the different wall that you asked about, refused to come in on the application.
Right.
So
Right. They didn't want to join the party. So,
Is that wall part of the application?
not the Ronlo wall.
Yeah, because that's on their property, right? That's on the other property?
well, that's where it was fenced off. That, we just put the fence, the decision or the recommendation from the town was just fence off that wall and it's theirs.
Oh, I'm sorry, so that's why you had that photo.
That's why that's photo at the end is shown.
Okay, so to be clear, that western wall that was being discussed is not before the board right now. It's just the southern one with before.
No, a portion, if you go north to tax lot 20.7, then there is the wall. The wall is, there is a co-applicant there as well. So it's 3 parcels.
We ended up, we didn't need that.
You did not need them.
We did not need them because the wall's only 13 inches high. So if it can go up to 18 inches and be on the property
Then
line.
that's fine.
The surveyor indicated that wall apparently abuts property line, and that's a licensed land surveyor. So if they say that, then that's good enough.
That's fine. I'm okay. That's,
And I believe, because the Scarpento on the site plan indicated as well, that it was a maximum height of 13
13 inch, right.
Okay, so western wall not before the board.
So then western wall, that's correct then. You're
Great.
right. You're right. I stand corrected. Take it out altogether.
At least with this wall, this block wall, if the neighbor's a co-applicant, obviously they don't have any opposition to it.
I would agree with that.
Correct.
And this is industrial. I guess my simplistic question is, do we care?
Planning does not.
Right.
And I don't know.
We're only here because we have to be here.
And I don't care. I don't think
Is it, was this the only thing holding up site plan approval?
Well, it was the fence. I have to talk about the fence. So the fence is proposed along the cul-de-sac we have to construct, and we're proposing that at 6 foot, setback 6 feet 6 inches, where 15 feet is required. And the reason why it's shown there is that if my client is dedicating the land, if they met the setback, that means not only are they dedicating the land, but then they're losing even more property because they have to set the fence back. So the thought was try to keep it as tight to preserve as much property as possible, so that they don't get punished for giving the land to the town.
Planning?
Yeah, I don't have any issue with this application. I think all of his points are valid.
But specifically the fence is what we were told.
Yeah, again, I think that's a valid point anyway.
Probably shouldn't have even been written as a zoning variance because we're accepting the land for
Exactly.
dedication.
Typically, you're right. Typically, it's not, but whatever. I do whatever they tell me to do.
Okay, any other questions from the board at this time? No questions. No, does anyone else like to be heard in this matter? No? All right. I take a motion, please.
I'll make the motion to grant the
Second. All in favor? Aye. Application is granted.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anybody on the application of 660 Motor Realty LLC, application number 323-25. It's come to our attention and that of the applicant that a variance is not necessary on this application as the change of zone was approved along with the modification of the lot area by the town board in December of 2023. And since then, the resolution and the covenants have been recorded in the office of town clerk. So there is no need for this variance application. I'm not sure if the board would like the applicant to withdraw the application or if you're comfortable just dismissing it.
Motion to dismiss, right?
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. All right, so the motion, application is dismissed.
I'm gonna give that to Dan.
We'll mark it up.
I need a second. Okay.
Anything else for the mayor?
We have 13 accessory apartments to renew for a period of 3 years.
Motion. Second. All in favor? Aye.
And we have one application to read into the record.
One decision?
And one decision previously reserved. Actually, you know what? Let me make that two, if you don't mind. Just do me a favor. I was late on my school bus trip today, and just pay it. I'm going to do the top two decisions. Just make note of the hamlets, and please read your motions accordingly. I usually tell you who you are. Yes.
Who am I?
You're hot pot.
Okay, Sable.
Application number 161-25, Robert and Gina Dallas. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated June 10, 2025, the application is denied as to the floor area ratio of 36.7%, granted not to exceed 30%, and granted the balance of the application. On motion of?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application number 164-25, Guy Nelson and Michael Iwanzicko. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated June 10, 2025, the application is granted as to the fountain in the front yard on the specific condition that it comply with all safety requirements of the New York State Building Code. On motion of?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
That's a wrap.
Okay.
What about 170?
Not doing that.
I didn't do it.